According to ScienceDirect.com, mass hysteria is a social illness defined as a constellation of symptoms suggestive of organic illness but without an identified cause in a group of people with shared beliefs about the cause of the symptoms. It's a really weird thing that people have done in the past, and I'm really interested in a lot of weird things, so let's talk about it. There's one mass hysteria event that I think is the one that everybody has heard about and the one that typically comes to mind when mass hysteria is brought up, which is the dancing plague. In 1518 in Strasbourg, which is modern-day France, a woman by the name of Frau Troffea, I believe, began dancing in the streets. She was accompanied by no music, and onlookers were confused as to why she was dancing. After a while, others who witnessed her began to join in, dancing along with her. It was in July when the dancing had started, and by August, around 400 people had died from just dancing themselves to death. The town had built a stage and brought a band in to perform live music for the dancers because the authorities in the town prescribed more dancing because they thought that would maybe cure them. The plague eventually ended up ending or whatever in September after the dancers were ordered to go to the shrine of Saint Vitus, who they believed had cursed them with this constant dance. And they sprinkled their toes with holy water, and they painted red crosses on the tops and the bottoms of their red shoes, which they wore to the shrine. And after they did this, the word had spread that they were successful and that the saint had forgiven them. And the remaining dancers were taken to a mountain to pray. That's a brief explanation of the dancing plague. There's a ton of other YouTube videos about the topic. If you're interested in it, I definitely recommend that you check out other videos and do a little bit of research on it when you're done. Don't click off this video though. But this happened a long time ago, so there's not a super large amount of info about this, just maybe a little bit more in depth than the explanation that I just gave. We can move on to the main topic that got me interested in making this video. In October of 2011, a high school in Leroy, New York made the news for a really interesting reason. The students at the school were displaying symptoms of the neurological disorder called Tourette syndrome. This happened over the span of a few months as more and more students and people joined in. Most of them were teenage girls that were students of the school. Other than that, one boy, I'm assuming he was also a high school student, and one older woman, probably a staff member or something of the school, also were displaying symptoms of this. The people in the area were concerned that the cause was environmental factors of this or something of that sort, so soil samples were taken around the school grounds. Parents and others blamed a train derailment that had dumped cyanide and an industrial solvent in Leroy in 1970. That is a whole other topic for another video, and it is going to be my next video, so if you want to hear the full in-depth story of this train derailment, it's really interesting, and if you want to hear the story of that, just subscribe, and that is my next video coming up. I did a little side quest while I was researching for this video and discovered a lot of stuff about that, and it's really interesting, so I'm gonna do that as my next video. But like I said, people were concerned because of the chemicals from the train that they could have had something to do with it, and it was poisoning them or something. But the soil test supposedly came back fine, so they kind of ruled that out. By the next year, the story was shared around, and some of the students ended up being on TV. I think specifically the Today Show. The same student that was on the Today Show, I believe, also did some YouTube videos talking about her symptoms and everything. Dr. Laszlo McKeeler, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his name. He was a neurologist. He was from the Dent Neurological Institute, and he was the one to treat most of the students that were showing these symptoms. Not long after, he came to the conclusion that they were suffering from a bout of mass hysteria. As noted in an article from IFLscience.com, the students' parents were not very fond of that diagnosis, and they accused the school and the town of a cover-up, and maybe that they were lying about some of the environmental stuff, but by the summer, many of the students were actually back to normal, except for one of them who actually got diagnosed with Tourette syndrome. The doctor that I mentioned earlier, Dr. Meckler, I'm never gonna pronounce that right, he thought that this was like indicative of the mass hysteria that had followed, so the other students had witnessed her actual Tourette symptoms. In an interview, he said, "We noticed that the kids who were not in the media were getting better. The kids who were in the media were still very symptomatic. One thing that they learned is how social media and mainstream media can worsen the symptoms. The mass hysteria was really fueled by the national media, social media. All this promoted the worsening of the symptoms by putting these people at the national forefront," which this quote moves on to my next question that I came up with while I was writing the script for this. Could social media now cause a mass hysteria about, like, could social media cause this now? We are chronically exposed to social media now. It's almost like inescapable. Long-form content like YouTube has transformed into short-form content like TikTok, Instagram, Reels, and like YouTube Shorts, which are way more absorbable and like easily accessible. Whereas before you would like sit and watch a full-length video about a topic that like interests you, and maybe you would sit down and watch that during like dinner or whatever. Now most of us are scrolling through shorts and watching like 100+ shorts before bed or while eating or whatever, and I am in full support of sharing whatever it is that maybe you're going through and destigmatizing all of the mental, like neurological and physical health conditions. We are constantly being exposed to these things on the daily. Now, I know that I asked a question, but I feel like this has kind of almost happened. I heard about this a while back, but while writing the bullet points for this video, I have the line, "Mental health disorders are on a rapid incline. Could this be a sort of mass hysteria?" And while I disagree with this question that I formed while researching this video, I do think that it's a really interesting topic and an interesting thing to maybe research in the future, like an experiment along the sorts of putting a non-anxious person in a location or a house with anxious people for like a week and seeing if the non-anxious person ends up becoming anxious because they're around those types of people. I don't know if this has ever been studied, and if you know if anything like this has, please comment it down below because it really interests me. Like, I would love to read the studies of this. But another question that came to mind while I was researching for this was, could mass hysteria be a form of health anxiety? Because health anxiety is a very common form of anxiety, and I dealt with it quite bad as a child. But it's like, if you sometimes you want people with it will hear, at least for me, a symptom of an illness, and even if the symptom had like 50,000 other illnesses that could be causing that symptom, my brain would think it was the one illness that I had heard about. And I was thinking about this in that way when like the high schoolers found out it was mass hysteria. How long after did the symptoms fade? Like they said, most of them were normal by summertime, but when their brain like realized that they didn't actually have Tourette syndrome, I wonder like what is the mental thing that's happening and why the symptoms would stop. A while back when I was on TikTok or YouTube somewhere, and it might have been on Reddit, I'm not sure, but I saw this post or this thing about people faking DID, which is dissociative identity disorder. It's kind of sometimes more known as like multiple personalities or multiple personality disorder, but the term like DID I believe is the official term. There were people on TikTok who were faking having DID for views, or I'm assuming attention, and I want to make sure that I get this correct because I don't want to spread false information about any disorder. But the person that I saw being talked about, they were switching alters like on, or personalities on camera, like they were introducing each different alter to the TikTok viewers. And the reason why people were calling out this specific creator for faking this is because that's not something that people that have DID do. They can't switch alters on demand. And again, I wanted to make sure that this was correct. So I did find a source for this. Beachsideteen.com is a treatment center in California, and they made an article about myths and truths about DID specifically, and their website says, quote, "A person with DID is unable to switch alters on command. While it is possible to influence/force certain alters to front through certain triggers, DID systems cannot switch in whatever alter they want just because they want to," end quote. And I feel like this is kind of common knowledge. Like, if you know anything about DID, this is something that I feel like is known, but it's not very talked about as a disorder. In my opinion, I feel like it's one of the least shared about disorders, so people don't really hear much about it. But this website also shares other ways that you can spot if someone's faking it, like saying something along the lines of them developing it in adulthood. There's other reasons, but the website says, quote, "DID can only form when the personality cannot fully integrate due to repeated childhood trauma disrupting this process," end quote. This is from that same website that I was referencing earlier, and you, like me, might be asking, why would someone do this? Like, why would someone fake a disorder like DID? And there are people faking other ones as well. This is just the one that I remembered when I was making this video. But the most obvious answer is just like for views and attention. I mean, it's just the same reason why people lie about most things on the internet. People will watch them and they're faking stuff for attention. And I'm not saying that most people are faking it when it comes to sharing their mental health on the internet. I am 100% in support of sharing what you are going through on the internet. I think it's a huge benefit for other people that are going through the same thing and just teaching people. But I think it's important to be educated or research something if it seems a little bit suspicious. And by all means, if something that I said in this video is incorrect, please comment it down below. I will pin the comment to the top. But if people are already faking like mental disorders on TikTok, do you think that the rise in mental health conditions could be caused by overexposure and overuse of social media? This topic, I'm gonna go kind of off script for a second and just add in this topic of mass hysteria and like these types of illnesses has been something that has been interests me. Gosh, I can't speak today. That I'm very interested in. This has been a topic that I've been very interested in. I've been very interested in this for a long time, and I have done quite a bit of research on this, I would say, just over the years of hearing about like the people in France. And I remember specifically a couple years ago reading about the case in New York where the high schoolers were displaying the Tourette syndrome symptoms. That's correct. Tourette syndrome symptoms. My brain just did a little whoo. And it was a very interesting read, and it kind of brought me to want to do a video like this because I'm curious about y'all's opinions on this just topic in general, like a mass hysteria type thing, because it's so fascinating to me that the brain can kind of do stuff like this. It's just really interesting. To conclude this video, I kind of just want to ask, do you think that we will see another bout of mass hysteria in the future? And like, what do you think the cause will be? I am currently taking psychology right now. I'm on the road to get like my master's I want to do in the future, and hopefully a PhD as well. So I'm really curious about your take on this topic and all of the different topics in this video. I really hope that you learned something from this, or at least like enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next video. If you want to subscribe and I'll share all the details of the train derailment. It's a super interesting topic. I've never heard of it before until I started researching for this video. There's a lot of stuff about the chemicals that leaked out. There's a lot of stuff about them trying to clean it up, and it's just not really talked about at all. I never heard of it before. And if you want to see about the train derailment, subscribe. And my screen went off, my background images, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Bye. I'm sorry if me not looking directly into the camera is annoying. I have my phone set up here with my script and stuff on it, and I have no other place to put it, and it has like my teleprompter on it with everything, and I have to put it right down here, or else the camera will see it. I need to put it side by side or like above my camera like a normal teleprompter, but I can't do that at the moment because I don't have an extra stand. So looking down, it is at the time being, and maybe it's nice because I'm not staring into your soul while I'm filming this, but yeah, okay, bye.